Max Stirner is best known for his radical ideas on individuality and egoism, as articulated in The Ego in Its Own, or in German, Der Einzige und sein Eigentum. In this book, he explains that agency and self-realization come from rejecting all forms of authority, including external authorities like institutions, as well as internalizations like social norms. The text explores his own approach to his unique process of shedding those authorities and internalizations to arrive at a form of selfhood he calls the unique one, or der Einzige. In doing this, he challenges the legitimacy of institutions, ideologies, and identity formations that are derived through deliberate or covert infiltration of desire as a productive force and main influencing aspect of an individual's psychic experience. His insights into art, particularly as expressed in his essay Art and Religion, or Kunst und Religion, offer a compelling extension of his philosophical framework, even though the essay was published before the main work was published. In this essay, Stirner presents art as both an expression of egoism, an endeavor that allows for self-revelation and self-enjoyment, as well as a dangerous gateway to spookland, which holds the potential of catapulting people into sensual slavery. However, by comparing art to religion, which he critiques for imposing abstract and overarching moral ideals, Stirner manages to show how art's potential for expression shines brighter than its potential for co-optation. He presents art as a domain of free creation within the sensuous world, where the individual can assert their autonomy and creativity. By exploring his views on art, we gain a deeper understanding of his broader philosophical themes and their implications for aesthetics and creativity. In this essay, we will look first at how art has been perceived and conceptualized throughout the past few centuries, and then we will look closer at how Max Stirner conceptualizes the potential of art as it is unique and way ahead of its time. To understand the potential of art, we have to dive into the study of a philosophical discipline that concerns itself with the nature of beauty, art, and sensory perception. It explores questions such as what makes something beautiful, how art is created and interpreted, and the role of aesthetic experience in human life and culture. At its core, aesthetics examines the qualities that evoke emotions like empathy, sadness, fear, anxiety, and sensual experiences like pleasure, satisfaction, or disgust, and what that reaction could mean. These perceptions can include visual, like art and design, auditory, like music, tactile, like texture, olfactory, like scents, and gustatory, like taste, sensations. Aesthetics also encompasses the study of emotional and intellectual responses to the sensory stimuli. Key areas of inquiry within aesthetics also include social and political aspects of art and beauty. Basically, aesthetics investigates the concept of beauty and its subjective and objective dimensions, asking whether beauty is universal or culturally determined, and how it influences our perceptions and judgments. It also focuses on the psychological and emotional impact of art and beauty on individuals. This includes discussions on how aesthetic experiences shape identity, empathy, and cultural values, and it considers the broader implications of aesthetics in social and political contexts. This includes examining how art and beauty intersect with issues of power, identity, and representation. Let's now briefly look at the history of aesthetics to see how art and beauty has been conceptualized throughout the past few centuries. Immanuel Kant's critique of judgment is pivotal in understanding how he views art as a bridge between reason and sensibility. Kant posits that aesthetic judgments are based on subjective feeling rather than cognitive reasoning, thereby emphasizing the universal and disinterested nature of aesthetic appreciation. Hegel's lectures on aesthetics provide a historical progression of art as a manifestation of the development of human spirit and consciousness. He sees art evolving through different stages: symbolic, classical, and romantic, culminating in absolute spirit in philosophy. In The Birth of Tragedy, Nietzsche contrasts the Dionysian, so emotional and chaotic, and Apollonian, so order and rationality, aspects of art. He argues that the tension between these forces gives rise to great art, in particular, tragic drama, which embodies profound existential truths. Heidegger's The Origin of the Work of Art explores art as a way for humanity to reveal truths about being and existence. He emphasizes the artwork as a setting into work that opens up worlds of meaning, challenging traditional conceptions of art as mere representation. Theodor Adorno's aesthetic theory explores the relationship between art and society, in particular in the context of modernity and capitalism. He critiques the commodification of art and advocates for its autonomy and critical potential. Jacques Derrida, a key figure in post-structuralist thought, challenges traditional notions of art and aesthetics through his concept of deconstruction, questions the stability of meanings in art and language, suggesting that interpretations are fluid and context-dependent. Michel Foucault's explorations in The Order of Things and other works examine how power structures shape knowledge and discourse about art. He investigates how systems of thought categorize and control artistic practices, revealing underlying social and political dynamics. Susan Sontag, in Against Interpretation and Other Essays, challenges the tendency to interpret art solely through critical analysis. She advocates for experiencing art directly and embracing its sensory and emotional impact, rather than reducing it to intellectual discourse. Max Stirner's conceptualization of art connects to the many theories presented here in unique ways. As briefly mentioned, Max Stirner conceptualized art in two opposing ways. On the one hand, art was seen as a form of egoism, while on the other hand, it was presented as potentially dangerous to the integrity of the individual, due to its ability to affect the individual on an emotional and sensual level. Let's first look at the positive ways he indirectly applies to art in his texts The Ego in Its Own and Art and Religion. Max Stirner's philosophy places significant emphasis on individuality and the expression of the self, which can be directly related to art as a form of self-expression. Although Stirner did not write extensively about art, his ideas about egoism and self-assertion provide a rich foundation for understanding art in this context. This quote highlights Stirner's belief in self-mastery as a gateway to agency and the importance of autonomy. Applied to art, it suggests that artistic expression is not about adhering to standards or ideals, but about what genuinely reflects and serves the experiencing ego. Art as self-expression is about conveying the artist's authenticity, which to Stirner is whatever the artist seeks to express. It is thereby a direct assertion of one's ownness, unless, of course, it is created for another purpose, in which case it would be a means to an end, or various other things which, within the egoist framework, would be totally legit. Art can therefore be an expression of self-ownership, and self-ownership implies agency. By creating art as a means to an end that serves one's personal desire, it becomes an expression of agency. The artist exercises control over their personal narrative and existence, and reinforces their mastery over their own identity. Stirner sees art as a form of intimacy or connection with oneself. It is a fundamental form of self-enjoyment and self-revelation. that highlights the personal and intrinsic value of artistic creation. This quote underscores Stirner's belief in the primacy of the individual and the inherent creative power accessible to individuals. It suggests that artistic creation is a fundamental aspect of expressing one's individuality and asserting one's unique will and abilities. Through art, individuals can express their distinct perspectives, emotions, and ideas, and connect with their personal creativity in a unique way. This quote captures Stirner's vision of liberation as breaking free from the constraints of reality to engage in the boundless creation of one's own world. Applied to art, it suggests that art can serve as a means of liberation, to transcend societal limitations and explore creative freedom. So in this way, art provides a means to transcend the constraints imposed by society, culture, and reality. Art as a form of liberation involves the freedom to create and destroy without restriction, and it involves subverting existing paradigms and exploring new possibilities in whatever way the individual chooses. This quote illustrates Stirner's critique of societal ideals and constructs, which he views as abstract spooks or illusions that hold power over individuals. Applying this to art, Stirner would likely support the idea of art that critiques these societal constructs, whether they are religious, political, or cultural, by exposing them as mere illusions that constrain ownness. Art that challenges the ideals of man and humanity as higher essences would likely be approved of by Stirner because it can deconstruct massive meaning production machines and reveal their oppressive nature in a comprehensible and accessible way. Although Stirner did not explicitly address art as a form of social critique, his philosophical stance on societal constructs provides a strong foundation for interpreting art in this way. Art that challenges societal norms, exposes illusions, and promotes individual ownness can be seen as an extension of Stirner's critique of societal ideals and his egoism. Stirner views art as a potential destructive force which can aid the individual in self-realization. This quote reflects Stirner's critique of abstract concepts and universal norms. Applying this to art, Stirner would likely view artistic conventions and the idea of universal beauty as an artificial construct that imposes standards on individual expression. In essence, Stirner would likely reject the notion of universal beauty in favor of a more subjective and individualistic approach to aesthetics, where beauty is defined by the self or the ego, or through ownness, and its unique experiences and expressions. Stirner presents a unique perspective on aesthetics in his essay Art and Religion, alongside his main work, that contrasts sharply but also offers a kind of overarching perspective of art. It also frames art's potential in a way that wouldn't come up again until a while later, so in that way he was definitely ahead of his time. For thinkers like Kant and Hegel, but also Nietzsche and Heidegger, art embodies ideals of beauty, truth, and higher spiritual or cultural values. They explore the transformative and elevating potential of art, its ability to reveal truths about existence, and its role in spiritual and cultural development. These philosophers celebrate nature, viewing individual expression as connected to something more, something larger than the individual, and they look for and imagine its emotional depth. They see art as a means to engage with the sublime and irrational aspects of human experience. In relation to Hegel, for example, Stirner finds that kind of conceptualization which takes away from the individual and the individual's experience difficult. He criticizes romanticized notions of art that elevated to transcendent or ideal realm beyond individual experience. Stirner argues that art can be a tool of domination and illusion. used by authorities, whether religious, cultural, or political, to impose ideologies and manipulate individuals. He sees art as potentially reinforcing societal norms and power structures rather than liberating individuals from them. He rejects the notion that art should serve as a vehicle for cultural, societal, or religious truths, and that it should not surpass the realm of serving individual desires and interests. When it comes to life in general, Stirner's focus is on the here and now, as experienced by the individual. The here and now concept also exists in Heidegger's work. He calls it Dasein, which is basically a fancy way of saying that human existence is somehow special because it's experienced by conscious individuals. His philosophy, in particular in The Origin of the Work of Art, explores art as a revealing process that opens up the truth and meaning of human existence. He sees art as a way for humans to encounter and understand their existence more authentically, beyond mere rationality. But this implies that there was something there before the individual. He emphasizes the role of art in disclosing the world and revealing deeper ontological truths about being in the world, or Dasein. Stirner's critique of that kind of romanticism in art, in particular its potential to create illusions and false idols, indirectly challenges his emphasis on art's revelatory capacity. Stirner rejects the notion that art should serve as a vehicle for transcendent truths or societal values. The individual does not need to be part of some higher experience than itself. Unlike Kant, Hegel, Nietzsche, and even Heidegger, who discussed aesthetics in terms of its theoretical and philosophical dimensions, Stirner's approach to aesthetics is more pragmatic. He emphasizes the practical utility of art in serving desires and interests. Stirner views art as a means of personal expression and enjoyment, rather than as an object of intellectual contemplation or cultural validation. He's concerned with how individuals can use art to assert their unique ownness and as a way to challenge prevailing norms and ideologies. His emphasis on the practical utility of art aligns with Susan Sontag's critique of over-intellectualizing art in her work Against Interpretation. She argues against reducing art to mere theory and interpretation, and she advocates instead for a direct sensory engagement with artworks. This resonates with his view of art as a means of personal expression or experience and enjoyment, serving individual desires and interests rather than abstract ideals or philosophical contemplation. Stirner and Sontag also share concern for the autonomy and uniqueness of individual experience in relation to art. Stirner's concept of ownness, or Eigenheit, emphasizes the importance of individuals asserting their unique identities and desires through art, which in itself is a form of self-legitimization and a rejection of societal norms and ideologies. Sontag emphasizes the role of art in expanding individual consciousness and resisting the constraints of cultural and intellectual frameworks that seek to limit or define artistic expression. Stirner also rejects the idea that art has cultural or social value. This can be seen as an extension of his radical views on ownership, which challenges conventional notions of property and possession. He rejects the idea that anything created by individual ownness should or could ever be owned or controlled by authorities, whether they be cultural institutions, governments, or societal norms. His rejection of the cultural or social value of art parallels Foucault's explorations of how knowledge and cultural practices are shaped by power dynamics. Foucault's works, such as in The Order of Things and Discipline and Punish, critiques how institutions and discourses construct and enforce norms and values. Stirner argues against the imposition of cultural or societal values onto art as well. Stirner critiques the commodification of art as a form of alienation and domination. He's skeptical of how art can be co-opted and used to manipulate or exploit individuals. Stirner's focus is on preserving the authenticity and personal significance of art in what he's doing. This critique of the commodification of art aligns with the perspectives of Michel Foucault and Theodore Adorno, albeit from different angles within the realm of cultural and philosophical critique. Foucault's analysis of power relations in Discipline and Punish and other works provide a framework for understanding Stirner's concerns about the commercialization of art. Foucault examines how institutions and discourses exert control over cultural artifacts, including art, and determine their value within society. He critiques the ways in which economic forces and power structures regulate artistic production and consumption, because it has a massive influence on what art is created, exhibited, and revered. Adorno addresses the commodification of art extensively in his work Aesthetic Theory and other writings. He critiques how capitalist societies reduce art to a commodity and strip it of its critical and radical potential. Adorno argues that art's autonomy and authenticity are undermined when it becomes subjected to market forces and commercial interests. He sees commodification as a form of alienation that distorts art's ability to challenge dominant ideologies and offer genuine aesthetic experiences. So Stirner's skepticism toward the idealization of art echoes their critique of how capitalist systems and institutional frameworks manipulate and exploit cultural products for economic gain or social control. Stirner's focus on preserving the significance of the momentary personal experience of art and artistic expression challenges the pervasive influence of idealistic pressures and societal expectation. Stirner shows us both sides of art and aesthetics. He explains that art is a pleasurable experience for individuals in whatever way they like it, or it can be co-opted and used to throw us into spookland. This isn't done through some well-thought-out process or plan necessarily. It is done by means of idealism, meaning it is done by believing in a fundamental essence that goes beyond the momentary pleasure and self-experience or self-connection of the individual. This is why he compares it to religious faith, and his direct comparison helps us understand the negative and positive potentials of art within an egoist framework. Central to his perspective is the distinction between artistic inspiration and religious faith, which he argues fundamentally shapes their respective impacts on individuals and society. Stirner draws a parallel between art and religion, suggesting that both involve a form of enthusiasm that elevates the individual. However, he also distinguishes between the two, noting that while artistic inspiration is tied to creativity, religious faith is tied to belief in something beyond the self. So while he acknowledges that both involve a form of enthusiasm that elevates the individual beyond mundane existence, he also highlights a crucial difference. Artistic inspiration is rooted in creativity and the individual's expressive capacity, whereas religious faith hinges on belief in something beyond the self, like an external doctrine or deity. Stirner's comparison underscores his belief that art allows for personal autonomy and creativity, whereas religion often imposes external beliefs and doctrines. Stirner further elucidates his perspective by noting that both are capable of presenting higher ideals that surpass human existence. However, he emphasizes that they do so in contrasting ways. Art, according to Stirner, creates a sensuous world, a tangible sensory realm that reflects the creator's imaginative expression. In contrast, religion constructs an intellectual or supersensuous world, an abstract realm of beliefs and ideals that transcend immediate sensory experience. This distinction underscores his views that art operates within the realm of personal creativity and sensory perception, thereby offering a space for individuals to explore and express their unique perspectives without the imposition of external dogma or authority. Stirner acknowledges that art allows for a certain freedom of expression within the sensory world. He contends that while art liberates the spirit to create and innovate, it remains bound by worldly constraints. This nuanced perspective reflects his recognition that art, while offering freedom and creativity, is still influenced by societal norms and practical limitations. However, despite these boundaries, Stirner values art as a domain of free creation within the sensuous realm. He sees this freedom as essential for individuals to assert their autonomy and challenge conventional expectations. Ultimately, Stirner's perspective on art celebrates its capacity to inspire and elevate individuals while cautioning against the dangers of ideological and religious imposition. There's a thin line, so remember not to let the spooks get you.